Captain Park Ji-ho sat in his chair on the bridge of the human ship called Serenity's Edge. The ship was not big or fancy like the warships of other alien races. It looked like a simple trading vessel that humans used to buy and sell goods across the galaxy. But Park Ji-ho was not worried about how his ship looked. He had more important things to think about. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of computers. Dr. Kim Mira stood near the science station, checking her equipment. She was supposed to be a scientist who studied alien life forms. Most people thought that was all she did. They were wrong. Kim Mira had other jobs that she kept secret from everyone except a few trusted humans. Engineer Yoon Taek worked at his console, watching the ship's systems. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he made small adjustments. To anyone watching, he was just fixing normal ship problems. But Yoon Taek was actually checking something much more important. He was making sure their secret communication system was working perfectly. Outside the ship, the Corvani system spread out before them. 3 planets circled a yellow star, and the middle planet was where the Corvani people lived. Their cities covered most of the land, and huge space stations floated in orbit around their world. The Corvanis were proud of their technology and their military power. They thought they were better than most other races in the galaxy. The Corvanis were reptile-like creatures with thick scales and sharp teeth. They stood taller than humans and were much stronger. Their government controlled many star systems, and their warships were feared across the galaxy. When the Corvanis wanted something, they usually took it by force. Today, the humans had come to buy rare minerals that could only be found in the Corvani system. These minerals were needed to make special computer parts that humans used in their technology. The Corvanis had agreed to sell the minerals, but they were making the humans pay a very high price. Park Ji-ho looked at the message on his screen. The Corvani Chancellor wanted to meet with them on the main space station. The Chancellor was the leader of all Corvani people, and he did not usually meet with humans. This made Park Ji-ho think that something unusual was happening. "Dr. Kim," Park Ji-ho said without turning around. "Are you ready for the meeting?" Kim Mira looked up from her work. "Yes, Captain. All my equipment is prepared." She did not say what kind of equipment she meant. Her scientific tools were ready, but so were the hidden devices that would record everything the Corvanis said and did. "Good," Park Ji-ho replied. "Yoon Taek, is our communication system working?" Yoon Taek nodded. "Everything is perfect, Captain. All channels are open and secure." He meant more than just their regular radio system. Hidden inside the ship's normal communications were special quantum transmitters that could send messages instantly across the entire galaxy. No other race knew that humans had this technology. The shuttle ride to the Corvani space station was smooth. The station was enormous, bigger than most human cities. It was shaped like a giant wheel that spun slowly in space. Thousands of Corvani ships moved around it like busy insects. Some were cargo vessels bringing goods from other worlds. Others were warships with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Park Ji-ho, Kim Mira, and 2 other human officers walked through the station's corridors. The ceilings were very high because the Corvanis were so tall. The walls were covered with pictures showing Corvani victories in battles against other alien races. The message was clear. The Corvanis were warriors who conquered their enemies. Corvani soldiers watched the humans as they walked past. The soldiers wore thick armor and carried energy weapons. Their eyes followed every movement the humans made. Park Ji-ho could feel their suspicion, but he kept his face calm and peaceful. This was exactly how humans wanted other races to see them, as harmless traders who caused no trouble. The meeting room was even more impressive than the corridors. It was huge, with a curved ceiling that showed a view of space above them. In the center of the room was a long table made from some kind of black stone. The Corvani Chancellor sat at the far end, wearing robes that showed his high rank. Chancellor Vorthak was old, even for a Corvani. His scales had turned dark green with age, and several scars crossed his face from battles fought long ago. When he looked at the humans, his yellow eyes showed no friendliness at all. To him, humans were just another weak race that existed to serve stronger species like the Corvanis. Humans, Vorthak said in a deep voice. You want our minerals. We have decided to sell them to you, but the price has changed. Park Ji-ho sat down across from the Chancellor. We agreed on a price yesterday. Our government signed a contract. Vorthak laughed, showing his sharp teeth. Contracts are for equals. You are not our equals. You have no real military power. Your colonies are small and weak. Your ships carry no serious weapons. Why should we treat you as equals? Kim Mira sat quietly beside Park Ji-ho, but she was recording everything. Her hidden devices were measuring the room, counting the guards, and analyzing the station's defenses. All of this information would be sent back to human intelligence services within minutes. We have always honored our agreements, Park Ji-ho said calmly. We ask only that you do the same. You ask? Vorthak stood up, his full height making him look very threatening. You are in our system, surrounded by our ships. You should be grateful that we let you leave alive, let alone with our minerals. Other Corvani officials around the table made sounds of agreement. They enjoyed seeing the humans being humiliated. In their minds, this was how things should be. Strong races commanded, and weak races obeyed. But Park Ji-ho did not look frightened or angry. He simply nodded. I understand your position, Chancellor. However, I think there may be some things you do not understand about humans. What could we possibly need to understand about your pathetic species? Vorthak asked. We prefer peace to war, Park Ji-ho said. We choose trade over conquest. We build rather than destroy. But preference is not the same as inability. The room became very quiet. Vorthak stared at Park Ji-ho, trying to understand what he meant. The human's words sounded almost like a threat, but that was impossible. Everyone knew that humans were weak. Kim Mira touched a small device on her wrist. The movement was so quick that no one noticed, but that tiny action sent a message to human ships all across the galaxy. The message was simple. Prepare for possible hostilities. Are you threatening us? Vorthak asked slowly. I am stating facts, Park Ji-ho replied. We came here to buy minerals at an agreed price. We are prepared to pay that price and leave peacefully. If you choose to change our agreement, that is your decision. But decisions have consequences. Suddenly, alarms began ringing throughout the space station. A Corvani officer rushed into the room and whispered something urgent to the Chancellor. Vorthak's face changed from anger to surprise to something that might have been fear. What is it? Park Ji-ho asked, though he already knew. Long-range sensors have detected a large fleet moving toward the outer edge of our system, Vorthak said. Ships we do not recognize. Park Ji-ho stood up slowly. Chancellor, I suggest we complete our business quickly. It appears that the galaxy is about to become a more dangerous place. Far away in a distant star system, Admiral Cho Dae-ho sat in the command center of a secret human base. The base was hidden inside an asteroid that looked empty from the outside, but inside, it contained some of the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Cho Dae-ho was reading reports from human agents across known space. For 300 years, humans had been watching and learning. They had seen how other races fought their wars. They had studied their weapons and their tactics. Most importantly, they had learned about their weaknesses. The report he was reading now was about a race called the Skull Hegemony. The Skulls were insect-like creatures who believed that only the strong deserved to survive. They had been growing, more aggressive recently, attacking smaller civilizations and taking their worlds. Now the Skulls were moving toward human space. Their target was a human colony world called New Busan. The Skulls thought it would be an easy victory. They believed Humans were too weak to fight back effectively. Chodeho touched a control on his desk. "Send the alert to New Busan," he said to his communications officer. "Tell Governor Lee that the test is about to begin." The test was something humans had been preparing for since they first met other alien races. For 3 centuries, they had acted like a peaceful species that wanted only to trade and explore. They had let other races think humans were weak and harmless, but humans remembered their own history. They knew what happened when strong civilizations met weak ones. They had decided long ago that they would never be the weak ones again. As Admiral Chodeho sent his orders across human space, the galaxy was about to learn something new about the species they called quiet. Sometimes, the quietest species were the ones you should fear the most. The Skal invasion fleet moved through space like a dark cloud of death. 200 warships traveled together, their black hulls covered with weapons and armor. Each ship was twice the size of any human vessel that other races had ever seen. The Skals had built their fleet for one purpose: to destroy anyone who stood in their way. Warlord Thaxis stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars ahead. He was enormous, even for a Skal. His insect-like body was covered in thick armor that had been grown from his own shell. 4 arms ended in sharp claws that could cut through metal. His compound eyes could see in many different types of light, making him a perfect hunter. The Skals had been planning this attack for months. They had chosen the human colony of New Busan because it looked like an easy target. The planet had only 50,000 humans living on it. Their orbital defenses looked weak. Their military force seemed tiny compared to other races. "How long until we reach the human world?" Thaxis asked his navigation officer. 6 hours, Warlord," the officer replied. "Our scouts report no change in their defenses. They have only 12 ships protecting the planet." Thaxis made a sound that was like laughter, but much more frightening. 12 ships against 200. The humans must be even more stupid than we thought. On the planet New Busan, Governor Lee Sunmi sat in her office looking at reports from around the colony. The office was simple and plain, like most human buildings. Through her window, she could see the main city spreading out below. Humans walked the streets, went to work, and lived their normal lives. They had no idea that a massive enemy fleet was coming to destroy them. But Governor Lee knew. She had received the warning from Admiral Chodeho hours ago. She also knew something that the Skals did not. New Busan was not the helpless target. It appeared to be. Colonel Bae Hyunwoo knocked on her door and entered. He was the head of colonial security, which was what humans called their military forces on New Busan. Other races thought this meant he commanded a few hundred guards with small weapons. They were very wrong. "Governor," Colonel Bae said quietly, "all systems are ready. The evacuation will begin in 1 hour." Lee Sunmi nodded. "How many civilians will we move?" "All non-essential personnel will be relocated to the underground shelters," Bae replied. "That includes 45,000 people. The shelters can keep them safe even if the planet's surface is bombed." "And our defenses?" Colonel Bae smiled. Slightly. "The Skals are going to get a surprise they will never forget." Far from the planet, in what looked like empty space, something waited. To any ship's sensors, this area contained nothing but dust and small rocks. But hidden among the rocks were objects that were much more dangerous. They had been there for 50 years, waiting patiently for someone to threaten New Busan. The objects looked like asteroids, but they were actually weapon platforms. Each one contained enough firepower to destroy several enemy ships. They were covered with special materials that made them invisible to most sensors. The Skals would not know they existed until it was too late. On the planet's surface, things that looked like mining equipment began to change. Huge machines that had been digging for minerals suddenly revealed their true purpose. Hidden panels opened to show missile launchers and energy cannons. The mining ships in orbit around the planet powered up weapons that had been disguised as cargo containers. The 12 human ships that protected New Busan were real, but they were not what they seemed. Each ship looked small and weak from the outside. Inside, they contained technology that was far beyond what any other race possessed. Their weapons could punch through the strongest armor. Their shields could stop almost any attack. Captain Nam Yunbi commanded one of these ships, a vessel called the Defender's Hope. From the outside, it looked like a simple patrol craft. Inside, it had the firepower of a battleship 3 times its size. "All ships report status," she said into her communication system. "Steel Wind ready," came the first reply. "Silent Thunder ready," came another. One by one, all 12 ships confirmed. They were prepared for battle. Each captain had trained for this moment for years. They knew exactly what to do when the Skalls arrived. The Skall fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Busan system. Warlord Thaxis looked at his tactical display and saw exactly what he expected, a small human colony with weak defenses. His ships began moving toward the planet in a formation designed to cause maximum fear. "Send a message to the humans," Thaxis ordered. "Tell them to surrender now or be destroyed." The message was transmitted to New Busan. Governor Lee Sunmi received it and sent back a simple reply: "We decline your offer." Thaxis was surprised by this response. Most species begged for mercy when they saw his fleet. The humans seemed almost calm about their approaching death. "No matter," he said. "Begin the attack. Destroy their orbital defenses first, then bombard the planet." The Skall fleet moved forward, weapons charging for the assault. They expected the human ships to run away or try to hide behind the planet. Instead, the 12 human vessels moved to meet them. "Are they insane?" asked Thaxis's tactical officer. 12 ships against 200? "It does not matter," Thaxis replied. "We will crush them in minutes." The battle began when the Skall ships opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles flew toward the human fleet. But something strange happened. The human ships moved in ways that seemed impossible. They twisted and turned through space, avoiding almost every attack. The few hits they took were absorbed by shields that glowed but did not break. Captain Nam Yunbi watched her tactical display as the enemy weapons missed her ship by meters. Her vessel's computer was calculating the exact position of every Skall ship and predicting where they would fire next. This gave her crew enough time to move out of the way. "Return fire," she ordered. The human ships began shooting back, and the Skalls discovered something terrifying. Human weapons were far more powerful than they looked. Energy beams that seemed small compared to Skall cannons cut through enemy armor like it was paper. Human missiles moved so fast that Skall defense systems could not stop them. In the first minute of combat, 15 Skall ships were destroyed. In the second minute, 20 more were crippled or blown apart. Warlord Thaxis stared at his tactical display in shock. This was not how the battle was supposed to go. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. His tactical officer was reading sensor data frantically. "Their weapons are much more advanced than our intelligence suggested. Their ships are faster and more maneuverable than should be possible. Then we will overwhelm them with numbers," Thaxis growled. "All ships, attack formation 7. Surround them and fire everything." The remaining Skall vessels tried to spread out and surround the human fleet. But as they moved, something else happened that made Thaxis's blood run cold. Objects that had looked like asteroids suddenly came to life. The hidden weapon platforms revealed themselves and began firing on the Skall ships from behind. At the same time, the mining equipment on New Busan's surface opened fire. Missiles streaked up from the planet, targeting Skall ships that thought they were safe from ground-based weapons. The defensive platforms in orbit around New Busan powered up weapon systems that had been hidden for decades. The Skalls found themselves caught in a trap. Instead of attacking a weak colony, they were fighting an entire defensive network that had been secretly built over many years. Every asteroid, every piece of equipment, every structure in the system was part of a military plan that the humans had been preparing for this exact moment. Warlord Thaxus realized that his fleet was being destroyed piece by piece. In 10 minutes of combat, he had lost more than half his ships. The humans had not lost a single vessel. How did they know? He asked aloud. How did they know we were coming? The truth was something he could never have guessed. Humans had been watching the Skalls for years. They had agents in Skall space who reported on every fleet movement. They had cracked Skall communication codes and could read their military messages. The humans had known about this attack before the Skall commanders had finished planning it. But there was something even more frightening than human intelligence gathering. The 12 human ships that were destroying his fleet represented only a tiny fraction of human military power. The Skalls had attacked what they thought was a helpless colony. In reality, they had tested the defenses of a species that had been preparing for war for 300 years. Captain Nam Yunbi's ship fired its main weapon at Thaxus's flagship. The energy beam cut through the massive ship's armor and destroyed its main reactor. As alarms sounded throughout the dying vessel, Thaxus managed to send one final message to Skall space. They were ready, he transmitted. The humans were ready for us. Warn the others. Warn everyone. We have made a terrible mistake. The flagship exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from New Busan's surface. The few remaining Skall ships tried to escape, but none of them succeeded. The human defensive network tracked them down and destroyed them one by one. When the battle was over, 200 Skall warships had been completely destroyed. The human fleet had taken no losses at all. A few ships had minor damage to their shields, but nothing more serious than that. Governor Lee Sunmi stood at her office window, watching the distant flashes of light as the last enemy ships were. The news of the Skall fleet's destruction spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every major government knew that 200 warships had been completely destroyed by a small human colony. The implications of this event sent shock waves through the political centers of known space. In the crystal towers of the ethereal dominion, High Ethereal Zephyros meditated on this disturbing information. His people were psychic beings who could read thoughts and emotions from great distances. They had always considered themselves superior to other races because of this mental ability. But when they tried to probe human minds, they found something unexpected: silence. Human thoughts were protected by some kind of mental discipline that the ethereals had never encountered before. It was not like the crude mental shields that some warrior races used. This was something more sophisticated, more complete. It was as if humans had learned to make their minds invisible. On the mechanical world of Nexus Prime, Prime Mechanist Unit 7749 processed the battle data from New Busan. The Mechanists were a race of artificial beings who valued logic and efficiency above all else. They had calculated human military strength based on observable data over 3 centuries. Their calculations showed that humans should not have been able to defeat the Skall fleet. This meant their data was wrong, or humans had been hiding their true capabilities. Unit 7749 found both possibilities disturbing. If humans could hide their military strength so effectively, what else might they be concealing? The Galactic Council called an emergency session within days of the battle. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in the Great Council Chamber on the neutral world of Harmony Station. The chamber was enormous, designed to hold beings of many different sizes and atmospheric requirements. Today, it buzzed with nervous energy as delegates discussed the human situation. Counselor Han Ji-won entered the chamber with calm dignity. She was a small woman compared to most of the other delegates, but she carried herself with quiet confidence. As the official human representative to the Galactic Council, she had been dealing with suspicious aliens for 20 years. Today, she could feel that suspicion turning into something closer to fear. The Corvani Chancellor Vorthak was already speaking when she arrived. His reptilian features were twisted with anger as he addressed the assembly. "The humans have deceived us all," he declared. "They have pretended to be a peaceful trading race while secretly building military forces that can destroy entire fleets. This is a violation of galactic law and common decency." High ethereal Zephyros floated above his delegation, his translucent form shimmering with inner light. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We have attempted to scan human minds to understand their intentions," he said. "Our efforts have failed. Humans possess mental defenses that should not be possible for a non-psychic species. They are hiding something from us." Prime Mechanist Unit 7749's mechanical voice cut through the chamber's noise. "Analysis of the new Busan battle indicates human technology is several decades ahead of known development timelines. This suggests a systematic program of technological concealment lasting multiple centuries." Other delegates added their own concerns. The Centauri complained that human trade ships had been visiting their systems for decades, possibly gathering intelligence. The Hydran Collective reported unusual energy readings from systems where humans had established research stations. Every species had something suspicious to report about human activities. Counselor Han Ji-won listened to all of these accusations with perfect calm. She had expected this reaction. Humans had known that eventually their true capabilities would be revealed. They had prepared for this moment as carefully as they prepared for everything else. When the chamber finally quieted, she stood to address the assembly. Her voice carried clearly through the vast space, amplified by hidden technology that most delegates did not even know existed. "Fellow representatives," she began, "I understand your concerns about recent events. The destruction of the Skal fleet has raised questions about human military capabilities. I am authorized to address some of these questions." Chancellor Vorthak interrupted her. "You will address all of our questions, human. We demand full disclosure of your military strength, your technological capabilities, and your intentions toward other species." Han Ji-won looked at him with steady eyes. "Counselor Vorthak, you are demanding information that no sovereign species is required to provide. Would the Corvani Republic share complete details of your military forces with this council?" "That is different," Vorthak snarled. "We have not been hiding our strength while pretending to be weak." "Have you not?" Han Ji-won asked quietly. "Are you saying that every Corvani military installation is publicly known? That all your weapons research is shared with other species? That you have no secret projects or hidden capabilities?" The chamber fell silent. Every species present had military secrets they kept from others. The idea of complete transparency was absurd in a galaxy where conflicts were common. But high ethereal Zephyros was not satisfied with this response. "The issue is not military secrecy," he said. "The issue is deception on a massive scale. Humans have allowed other species to underestimate them for centuries. This suggests long-term planning for conquest or domination." Han Ji-won shook her head. "It suggests long-term planning for survival. We have studied galactic history, Counselor Zephyros. We know what happens when a technologically advanced species encounters less advanced ones. We decided long ago that we would not be the less advanced ones." "So you admit to systematic deception," Chancellor Vorthak said triumphantly. "I admit to systematic preparation," Han Ji-won replied. "Preparation is not aggression. Defense is not conquest. We have never attacked another species without provocation. We have never conquered territory that did not belong to us. We have honored every treaty and trade agreement we have signed." Prime Mechanist Unit 7749's sensors focused on the human counselor. Query: if human military capabilities are so advanced, why maintain peaceful pretenses? Logic suggests that superior force would make diplomacy unnecessary. This was the question Han Ji-won had been waiting for. It was the key to everything humans had been doing for 3 centuries. Because superior force without wisdom leads to destruction, she said. We have studied our own history and the history of every species in this galaxy. Every civilization that has relied purely on military might has eventually collapsed. Power corrupts. Victory breeds arrogance. Conquest creates enemies. She paused, looking around the chamber at delegates who were listening with growing attention. We chose a different path. We developed the ability to defend ourselves, but we also developed the wisdom to use that ability responsibly. We could have conquered this galaxy centuries ago. We chose not to because we learned from history that empires built on force always fall. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several delegates stood up, shouting questions and accusations. Chancellor, Vorthak's voice rose above the others. You dare claim you could have conquered us all? This is exactly the kind of arrogance we feared. The humans think they are superior to every other species in the galaxy. Han Ji-won waited for the noise to die down. When she spoke again, her voice was still calm, but there was something different about it. Something that made every delegate listen carefully. I do not claim superiority, she said. I state capability. There is a difference. We have the ability to act, but we choose restraint. We have the power to conquer, but we choose cooperation. We have the strength to rule, but we choose partnership. High, ethereal Zephyros floated closer to the human delegation. These are fine words, human, but words are easy to speak. How do we know you will continue to choose restraint? How do we know you will not decide one day that conquest is more profitable than cooperation? Han Ji-won looked at him directly. Because we understand the cost of power better than you think. We know what happens when strength is used without wisdom. Our own history taught us that lesson very clearly. Chancellor Vorthak slammed his clawed hand on his desk. Enough philosophy. We demand concrete assurances. We demand limits on human military expansion. We demand inspection of human military facilities. We demand guarantees that you will not use your hidden strength against peaceful species. The chamber filled with sounds of agreement from many delegates. They wanted treaties and agreements that would limit human power. They wanted inspections and oversight. They wanted control over a species that they now realized was far stronger than they had believed. Han Ji-won listened to all of their demands. Then she did something that surprised everyone in the chamber. She smiled. You want guarantees? She said. You want proof of our intentions? Very well. She reached into her diplomatic pouch and pulled out a small device. It looked like a simple communication tool, the kind that diplomats use to contact their home governments. But this device was much more than it appeared to be. This is a quantum transmitter, she explained, holding it up for all to see. It can send instantaneous messages across the entire galaxy using principles that most of your species do not yet understand. Prime Mechanist Unit 7749 sensors focused on the device with intense interest. Quantum entanglement communication is theoretically possible, but the signal that Counselor Han Ji-won had sent traveled across the galaxy in an instant, reaching destinations that other species had never suspected existed. Hidden receivers in hundreds of star systems detected the quantum transmission and began activating protocols that had been dormant for decades. On a mining station in the Vega system, workers who had been extracting rare metals for 30 years suddenly stopped their normal duties. The station's outer shell began to split open like a flower, revealing something that made nearby alien ships send frantic distress calls to their home worlds. The mining station was actually a massive weapons platform, larger than most space cities. Its hull bristled with energy cannons and missile launchers that had been concealed beneath fake mining equipment. Sensor arrays unfolded like wings, capable of tracking targets across multiple star systems. The station's true purpose became clear. It was a fortress guarding one of the galaxy's most important trade routes. Similar revelations occurred across known space. Research stations studying gas giant atmospheres suddenly emerged from the clouds. revealing themselves as mobile battle platforms with enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. Cargo ships that had been peacefully hauling goods for generations opened their holds to show advanced fighters and bombers ready for immediate deployment. Fleet Admiral Kang Sora stood on the bridge of her flagship as it decloaked near the Galactic core. Around her ship, nearly 2,000 other vessels materialized out of empty space. The first human defense fleet had been hiding in this system for 50 years, waiting for the day when they would need to reveal themselves. Each ship in the fleet was larger and more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Their hulls were made from materials that could absorb energy weapons and turn the power back against attackers. Their engines could push them through space at speeds that made other races' fastest ships look like they were standing still. Admiral, her communications officer reported, "We are receiving surrender requests from 17 different alien fleets in nearby systems." Kang Sora was not surprised. The sudden appearance of such a massive human force had terrified every military commander in the region. They assumed the humans were preparing to attack, and they knew they had no chance of winning such a battle. "Send a response to all of them," she ordered. "Tell them we have no hostile intentions. We are simply revealing our existence as part of a diplomatic process." On the industrial world of Kepler 442b, Dr. Lim Wanshik watched as his research teams emerged from underground laboratories that had been secretly built over the last century. These facilities had been developing technology that was decades ahead of anything other species possessed. The laboratories contained weapons that could manipulate gravity, creating fields that would crush enemy ships without touching them. There were energy shields that could protect entire planets from bombardment. Most impressive of all were the faster-than-light engines that could move ships across the galaxy in hours rather than weeks. "Doctor," his assistant called out, "the revelation is proceeding according to schedule. All major installations have been activated." Dr. Lim nodded. "Good. Begin transmitting our technical specifications to the Galactic Council. Let them see exactly how far ahead we really are." The specifications that Dr. Lim's team sent out shocked alien scientists across the galaxy. Human technology was not just more advanced than they had believed. It was more advanced than they had thought possible. Humans had solved engineering problems that other races considered impossible. Their ships could travel through hyperspace using principles that alien physicists did not understand. Their computers could process information faster than the best. Artificial intelligences other species had built. Their weapons could destroy targets at ranges that made conventional space combat obsolete. But the technology was not the most frightening revelation. What truly terrified the galaxy's leaders was the scope of human preparation. It became clear that humans had been conducting a centuries-long intelligence operation while simultaneously building a military force that could defeat any combination of alien powers. Captain Nam Yunbi, who had led the defense of New Busan, now found herself commanding a strike force that demonstrated human capabilities to selected alien leaders. Her ships could disable the most heavily defended installations without causing casualties, infiltrate bases that were supposed to be impregnable, and demonstrate combat techniques that seemed almost supernatural. In the Centauri system, she led a squadron of human ships in a training exercise against a Corvani battle group. The Corvanis had volunteered for this demonstration, believing their superior numbers and firepower would allow them to put up a good fight. The battle lasted exactly 3 minutes. The human ships moved through space like dancers, avoiding every weapon the Corvanis fired while systematically disabling their opponents. Not a single Corvani ship was destroyed, but all of them were left helpless, their weapons offline and their engines dead. Chancellor Vorthak, who had been watching from his flagship, stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "How is this possible?" he demanded. Captain Nam's voice came over the communication channel, calm and professional. "We have been studying Corvani military tactics for 200 years, Chancellor. We know how your ships move, how your commanders think, and how your weapons work. This gives us a significant advantage in any conflict." But our tactics are secret, Vorthak protested. Our military manuals are classified at the highest levels. Were classified? Nam corrected gently. Humans have been reading your classified documents for decades. We have agents in your government, your military, and your intelligence services. We know about threats before your own commanders do. The demonstration continued across the galaxy as human forces revealed their true strength to one alien government after another. Each revelation followed the same pattern. Humans would appear suddenly, demonstrate overwhelming superiority, and then explain that this superiority had existed for generations. The psychological impact was devastating. Every alien leader realized that humans could have conquered them at any time during the past century. The only reason they had not done so was choice. High Ethereal Zephyros attempted to understand this choice by probing the minds of human military officers. But even under battlefield conditions, human thoughts remained protected by that strange, mental silence. It was as if the entire species had learned to make their minds invisible to psychic observation. How do they do it? He asked his advisors. How do humans hide their thoughts so completely? His chief scientist, an ethereal named Mindweaver Soren, had been studying this question for years. We believe they have developed a form of mental discipline that creates natural psychic shields, he explained. It is not technology or artificial enhancement. It appears to be a learned skill that all humans possess. This revelation was almost as disturbing as human military superiority. If humans could hide their thoughts from the galaxy's most powerful psychic race, what other capabilities might they possess? The answer came from Dr. Song Mina, a human scientist who had been secretly studying alien psychology for decades. Her research revealed that humans had not just been preparing militarily, they had been preparing psychologically and culturally as well. We studied every major civilization in the galaxy, she explained in a broadcast to alien leaders. We learned your strengths and weaknesses, your fears and desires, your military capabilities and cultural blind spots. We use this knowledge not to exploit you, but to understand how to coexist with you peacefully. Her research teams had identified the psychological patterns that led to interstellar conflicts. They had developed strategies for preventing wars before they started, for resolving disputes without violence, and for building trust between species with very different world views. This was perhaps the most frightening revelation of all. Humans had not just built superior weapons, they had built superior understanding. They knew their potential enemies better than those enemies knew themselves. Prime Mechanist Unit 7749 processed all of this information and reached a disturbing conclusion. Analysis indicates humans have achieved a level of strategic superiority that makes conventional military thinking obsolete, it reported to the Mechanist leadership. They do not merely possess superior technology. They possess superior knowledge of how to use that technology effectively. The revelation continued for hours as human installations across the galaxy revealed themselves. Mining operations became fortresses. Research stations became battle platforms. Trade routes became strategic corridors protected by hidden defenses. By the end of the day, every major power in the galaxy understood that they were facing a species that had been playing a different game entirely. While they had been competing for territory and resources using conventional military thinking, humans had been preparing for a type of conflict that was completely beyond their experience. Fleet Admiral Kang Sora sent a final message to all alien governments as her fleet prepared to return to its hidden positions. The first human defense fleet will now resume its normal duties, she announced. We hope that this demonstration has answered your questions about human capabilities and intentions. The PAS message was polite, but its implications were clear. This massive force. The revelation of humanity's true strength sent shockwaves through every government in the galaxy. Within hours of the great unveiling, emergency sessions were called in capital cities across hundreds of worlds. Leaders who had dismissed humans as harmless traitors now faced the terrifying reality that they had been completely outmatched for centuries. President Yu Jin-yuk stood in the command center of the United Human Colony's headquarters on Earth. Through massive windows, he could see the city of New Geneva spreading out below. The city looked peaceful and normal, but hidden beneath its streets were command bunkers that could coordinate military operations across the entire galaxy. Reports were flooding in from human intelligence services everywhere. Some alien governments were trying to build emergency alliances against the human threat. Others were sending desperate offers of friendship and cooperation. A few were making preparations to flee to unexplored regions of space. "Mr. President," General Park Minji said as she entered the room, "we have a problem. The Skull hegemony is mobilizing everything they have left. They're calling it a holy war to destroy humanity before we can conquer the galaxy." President Yu turned from the window. "How many ships?" 5,000 warships, sir. It's the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. They're gathering forces from every Skull colony and calling in favors from allied species. General Park Minji was the head of Human Military Intelligence, an organization that had been watching alien civilizations for 3 centuries. She was small and quiet, but her mind contained more information about galactic military capabilities than the combined intelligence services of most other species. "They're targeting Earth directly," she continued. "The Skull leadership believes that destroying our homeworld will break humanity's spirit and make us easier to defeat." President Yu nodded grimly. This was exactly the kind of response humans had expected from some species. The Skulls were a proud warrior culture that could not accept being inferior to anyone. Rather than adapt to the new reality, they would choose to fight a war they could not win. "Have we tried diplomatic contact?" he asked. "Ambassador Choi Dong-yun has been attempting to reach Skull leadership for the past 6 hours, General Park replied. "They refuse to answer our communications. Their war council has declared humans to be an existential threat that must be eliminated." Ambassador Choi Dong-yun was humanity's chief negotiator, a man who had spent 40 years learning how to deal with alien psychology. He understood that some species would react to human revelations with fear and anger rather than reason. The Skull response was not entirely surprising. Their entire culture was built around the concept that only the strongest deserved to survive. Learning that humans had been secretly superior to them for centuries was something their pride could not accept. "What about the other major powers?" President Yu asked. "Mixed reactions," General Park said, consulting her reports. "The Ethereal Dominion is trying to form a coalition to contain human expansion. The Corvani Republic is split between those who want to ally with us and those who want to fight us. The Mechanist Collective is demanding access to our technology in exchange for peaceful relations." President Yu had expected these responses as well. Each species was reacting according to their cultural programming. The Ethereals, who prided themselves on mental superiority, could not accept that humans had minds they could not read. The Corvanis, who respected strength, were torn between fear and admiration. The Mechanists, who valued logic above all else, wanted to understand human technology. "Sir," an aide approached with an urgent message. "We're receiving reports from our deep space monitoring stations. The Skull fleet has begun moving toward Earth. Estimated arrival time is 72 hours. President Yu looked out at the city below. Millions of humans lived and worked there, completely unaware that the largest military force in galactic history was heading toward their world. They trusted their government to protect them, just as humans throughout the galaxy trusted that their leaders had prepared for this moment. "General Park," he said quietly, "activate the Homeland Defense Grid. It's time to show the galaxy what Earth's real defenses look like." Far beneath New Geneva, systems that had been dormant for decades began coming online. Hidden installations across Earth's surface and in orbit around the planet revealed their true nature. The defense grid that protected humanity's homeworld was beyond anything that other species had imagined possible. Meanwhile, President Yu made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He authorized a direct broadcast to every inhabited world in known space, bypassing alien governments to speak directly to their populations. The broadcast began with President Yu sitting at a simple desk, looking directly into the camera. He appeared calm and reasonable, like a teacher preparing to explain a complex but important lesson. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began, "my name is Yu Jinyuk, and I serve as President of the United Human Colonies. I am speaking to you today because recent events have created fear and confusion about human intentions. The broadcast was transmitted simultaneously on thousands of communication frequencies and in hundreds of alien languages. Human quantum technology made it impossible for alien governments to block or jam the signal. For 300 years, President Yu continued, humanity has lived peacefully among you. We have traded fairly, honored our agreements, and avoided conflicts whenever possible. Some of you have wondered why we seemed so different from other spacefaring species. Today I want to explain." He paused, allowing his words to be translated and absorbed by billions of alien listeners. "We are different because we learned from our history. On our homeworld of Earth, we fought terrible wars that nearly destroyed our entire species. We learned that military strength without wisdom leads to catastrophe. We learned that conquest creates more problems than it solves. Most importantly, we learned that true security comes not from defeating your enemies, but from making sure you have no enemies." The broadcast continued as President Yu explained humanity's approach to galactic relations. They had developed superior military capabilities not for conquest but for defense. They had gathered intelligence not to exploit other species, but to understand how to coexist with them peacefully. "We could have conquered this galaxy centuries ago," he said simply. "We chose not to because we understand the cost of empire. Every species that has tried to rule others through force has eventually collapsed from the weight of their own ambitions." While the broadcast continued, General Park Minji was coordinating humanity's response to the approaching Skull fleet. The enemy force was massive, but it was also predictable. Humans had been studying Skull military tactics for generations and knew exactly how they would attack. "Deploy the outer defense perimeter," she ordered. "Let them see what they're really facing." Hidden installations throughout the Sol system began revealing themselves. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as asteroids powered up their energy cores. Defense satellites that had been invisible to alien sensors suddenly became visible as they prepared for combat. But the most impressive defense was Earth itself. The planet that other species saw as a peaceful world of cities and farmland was actually the most heavily fortified location in the galaxy. Every mountain range contained hidden missile silos. Every ocean floor was covered with weapon platforms. The planet's entire moon had been converted into a massive fortress, disguised to look like a natural satellite. As the Skull fleet approached the edge of the Sol system, they began to understand the magnitude of their mistake. Their sensors detected defense installations that should not have existed. Their intelligence reports had described Earth as lightly defended. The reality was something completely different. Warlord Thaxis's son, Warlord Graxos, commanded the Skull fleet. He had inherited his father's pride and his hunger for victory, but he lacked his father's military experience. When he saw the scope of Earth's defenses, his first reaction was disbelief. "This is impossible," he declared to his officers. "Our intelligence reports showed minimal human defenses around their homeworld." His tactical officer, a veteran of many campaigns, studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. "Warlord, our intelligence was wrong. The humans have been hiding military installations throughout their entire star system." The Skull fleet had been designed to overwhelm a lightly defended world through sheer numbers. What they found instead was a defensive network that could have stopped a force 10 times their size. but Graxos was too proud to retreat and too angry to think clearly. "We will attack anyway," he ordered. "All ships, battle formation. We will break through their defenses and destroy their homeworld." The battle began when the Skall fleet entered weapons range of Earth's outer defenses. What happened next would be remembered as the most one-sided military engagement in galactic history. Earth's defenses did not simply destroy the attacking ships. They disabled them. Every Skall vessel found its weapons offline, its engines dead, its shields collapsed. Not a single ship was destroyed, but all 5,000 were rendered completely helpless within minutes. The precision was terrifying. Human. Technology could selectively shut down any system on any ship without harming the crew. The Skalls found themselves floating helplessly. 6 months had passed since the day that changed everything. The galaxy had settled into a new reality, one where humanity stood revealed not as the quiet traitors they had pretended to be, but as the patient guardians they had chosen to become. Director Kim Sang-hoon walked through the corridors of the new Interspecies Cooperation Center on Harmony Station. The building had been expanded to 3 times its original size to accommodate the flood of requests for human assistance and partnership. Every day brought new applications from species wanting to join what the media had started calling the Human Protection Network. The center buzzed with activity as representatives from dozens of species worked together on projects that would have been impossible just months earlier. Former enemies sat at the same tables, planning joint missions and sharing resources. The change was remarkable, but Kim Sang-hoon knew it was fragile. "Director," his assistant called out, "the weekly status reports are ready for your review." Kim Sang-hoon nodded and took the data pad. The reports showed steady progress across all major initiatives. Medical technology was being shared with species that had been suffering from incurable diseases. Transportation improvements were connecting remote worlds to galactic civilization. Most importantly, conflicts between species had dropped to the lowest levels in recorded history. But the most significant change was not visible in any report. It was philosophical. Species that had spent centuries competing for dominance were learning to cooperate for mutual benefit. The concept of strategic patience, which had guided human policy for 300 years, was spreading to other civilizations. Admiral Jung Yejin stood on the bridge of the Unity, flagship of the new Joint Galactic Defense Force. Through the massive viewport, she could see ships from 20 different species flying in perfect formation. Corvani warships flew alongside ethereal vessels, while mechanist ships coordinated with former Skall raiders who had joined the defense force. The Joint Defense Force had been President Yu's idea. Rather than having humanity stand alone as the galaxy's protector, he had proposed creating a unified military force that included the best soldiers and ships from every willing species. The force existed primarily to defend against external threats from beyond the galaxy, but its mere existence had eliminated the possibility of large-scale wars between member species. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "long-range sensors are detecting an unknown contact approaching from outside the galaxy. Estimated arrival in the outer rim in 6 hours." Admiral Jung studied the sensor data with interest rather than concern. This was exactly the kind of situation the Joint Defense Force had been created to handle. External threats had been a constant problem for centuries, but most species had been too busy fighting each other to deal with them effectively. "Alert all fleet commanders," she ordered. "Deploy the standard first contact protocol and send a message to Dr. Song Mina's cultural analysis team. We may need their expertise." Dr. Song Mina received the alert while working in her laboratory on Earth. She had spent the past 6 months developing programs that helped different species understand each other's psychology and culture. Her work had become essential for preventing conflicts between species with very different worldviews. The unknown contact was intriguing rather than threatening. Human deep space monitors had been tracking similar signals for years. The galaxy was not isolated. There were other civilizations beyond its borders, and some of them were finally making contact. Dr. Song, her research assistant, said, "The preliminary analysis suggests this contact is from a species we've never encountered before. They appear to be transmitting mathematical concepts and scientific data." Song Mina nodded. "Standard first contact procedure, then. Begin preparing welcome protocols in multiple universal languages, and notify the cultural exchange program. If these visitors are peaceful, we'll want to include them in our cooperation initiatives." The approaching aliens were indeed peaceful. They called themselves the Wanderers, and they had been traveling between galaxies for millennia, studying different civilizations and sharing knowledge. What they found in this galaxy surprised them greatly. The Wanderer ship entered the Outer Rim and was immediately met by a joint defense force fleet. But instead of the aggressive posturing that the Wanderers had encountered in other regions of space, they were greeted with curiosity and offers of assistance. Captain Park Ji-ho, who had been promoted to admiral after his role in the early diplomatic crisis, commanded the first contact fleet. His ship was no longer disguised as a simple trading vessel. The new diplomatic cruiser Peaceful Dawn was impressive enough to command respect, while remaining clearly non-threatening. "Welcome to our galaxy," Admiral Park transmitted to the alien visitors. "I am Admiral Park Ji-ho, representing the Joint Galactic Defense Force. We offer you safe passage and any assistance you may need." The response came in perfect universal standard, the common language that had been developed for interspecies communication. "We are grateful for your welcome, Admiral Park. We are the Wanderers, and we have come to study your civilization. We have observed this galaxy for many years, but recent events have made us curious to make direct contact." The Wanderer representative, who called itself Navigator Prime, was invited to visit Harmony Station. What it found there amazed even a being that had seen hundreds of different civilizations across multiple galaxies. Navigator Prime was a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell. It communicated through light patterns and electromagnetic fields rather than sound. Despite these differences, it found itself easily welcomed into the diverse community that had grown around human leadership. "Your species is remarkable, Navigator," Prime told Director Kim Sang-hoon during their first meeting. "We have observed many civilizations that achieved great military power. Almost all of them used that power to dominate others. You have chosen a different path." Kim Sang-hoon smiled. "We learned from our mistakes. Our own history taught us that power without wisdom leads to destruction." "Yes," Navigator Prime agreed, "but learning is different from applying what you have learned. We have seen species understand the lessons of history and still repeat the same mistakes. Your species appears to have genuinely changed its behavior based on what it learned." The Wanderers had data on thousands of civilizations across multiple galaxies. They had seen the rise and fall of countless empires, the birth and death of entire species, and the endless cycle of conquest and collapse that seemed to characterize most intelligent life. But they had never seen anything quite like what humanity had accomplished. A species had achieved overwhelming military superiority and then used that superiority to create peace rather than conquest. "We would like to study your civilization more closely," Navigator Prime explained. "With your permission, we would establish a permanent observation post in this galaxy. Our data on your development could be valuable for other species we encounter." The request was approved unanimously by the Galactic Council, which had been reformed with humanity as its strongest but not dominating voice. The Council now functioned as a true cooperative body rather than a forum for competing powers. The changes were visible everywhere. Former Skal warriors worked alongside human engineers to build defensive installations that protected peaceful worlds. Ethereal psychics collaborated with human psychologists to develop better methods of conflict resolution. Corvani military leaders studied human tactical doctrines and learned that true strength came from restraint rather than aggression. The transformation of the Skal hegemony was perhaps the most dramatic example of the new galactic order. After their catastrophic defeat at Earth, the Skal leadership had been forced to confront the reality that their warrior culture was leading them toward extinction. Warlord Graxos, whose fleet had been disabled at Earth, had become one of humanity's most unlikely allies. The experience of being completely outmatched without being destroyed had taught him something his species had never understood before. There was honor in acknowledging superior wisdom. "My father died believing that might made right," he told Admiral Young Yejin during a joint military exercise. "I have learned that right makes might. Humans are strong because they choose to be just, not the other way around." The Joint Defense Force had become more than just a military organization. It was a symbol of what the galaxy could accomplish when species worked together instead of against each other. Ships that had been designed to fight each other now protected. Worlds that had once been enemies. Technology sharing had accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. Human medical advances were eliminating diseases that had plagued other species for millennia. Corvani engineering techniques were being combined with human materials science to create construction projects on an unprecedented scale. Ethereal. Mental training was being adapted to help other species develop better emotional control. But perhaps the most important change was invisible to casual observers. The galaxy was learning to think in longer terms. Species that had measured success in years or decades were beginning to plan for centuries or millennia, following the human example of strategic patience. Dr. Song Mina's cultural exchange programs had become so successful that they were mandatory for all species wanting to join the Galactic.